Welcome to All Things Moore County, Moore County's weekly radio show highlighting the many facets of the Sandhills. That includes real estate, lifestyle, community and neighborhoods. And now from Fore Properties, here's your host, Bill Sahadi.
Good morning and welcome to the talk show, All Things Moore County. Dorothy, happy Mother's Day.
Thank you, Bill.
We are at that time of the year again.
Yes, we are.
Remember we did a couple of shows over the past couple of years with some really impressive ladies in Moore County.
We've done a lot of shows like that, but yes, I do remember.
Yeah, they've been some of the fondest memories I've had of some of the shows we've done. Today we're going to do another one. But today it's kind of special because the ladies that are at the table all work with me at Fore Properties. Yep, they are.
Good-looking group works for you.
I'll remove myself from the table and you can say that and it will be true. I've had the privilege of working with all the ladies that you see at the table today. They have great character, they have great heart. Growing up, I thought my mother's role in life was to just be there to satisfy every whim that I had. And I didn't think she existed before I was born. And working with these ladies, and they all have children, and I think at this table we're represented by about 18 children between the ages of 3 and 14 or 15, Nicole? Courtney is?
14.
Okay. And they come in, they're out of breath, they're trying to work at their careers, they're trying to be great moms, raising kids that can be high maintenance. They're trying to balance things that I never thought was something that people did. I mean, my job is easy. I'm a Johnny One Note. And watching them on a day-to-day basis and trying to understand their schedules makes me realize how much patience my mom had had with me as a kid, because I was tougher than any of the boys that I've seen at this table whose moms are sitting here. And I just assumed that that's just the way it was. So I've had the opportunity to get to know them professionally, and it's a privilege, and to watch them with their great kids. And the kids come in, and it's a great experience. So I thought it would be a great opportunity to talk to all these brokers, and I want to introduce them. To John Tampa's left, who I'm going to introduce in a second, is Stephanie Lemke. And going right around the table, Christian McCarthy, Nicholl Lee, Tracy Gibson, DiMayo and Bree Sheridan. And this doesn't even represent all the moms that work in our office. It's crazy. And I specifically asked John Tampa to come in and work with us. John has actually addressed some of our sales meetings in the past. John's a husband, a father, he's a grandfather, and he's reinvented himself many times over his career as a public school teacher, a coach, a corporate executive, a minister, a counselor, focusing on family relationships, and most recently a yoga teacher. And John, we had a show not a few weeks ago where you just finished a 500-hour certification, so you are now a teacher of yoga teachers.
Yes.
Not a teacher of students.
Right.
And you're stuck with me doing yoga. That has to dumb you down like nothing I've ever seen.
I did special ed teaching in my past.
Yeah, there you go.
And a dementia unit once.
That's right. So, but in addition to your private yoga business here in town, you're a highly credentialed continuing education provider for yoga teachers, but you also have a gift, and that's the ability to draw people out. And you have a perspective I think will add a lot of texture to our show.
Thank you.
So I wanted to welcome you, and you know all the ladies at the table.
Yes.
And you and I have it pretty easy. Men think we're so important, right? We think that the world revolves around us, and in fact, all the work that's done is sitting here to your left at the table and to my right.
Good time to be quiet.
right? I'm going to be quiet, and I'm going to turn it over to you.
Well, thank you, Bill. I'm delighted to be with all of you today, and my children range from 42 to 26, and I remember in the 1980s you'd go on a 2-week vacation and come home from your trip, and the only thing you needed to do to catch up with everything was to go out to your mailbox and pick out the mail and sort it out and wait for the phone to ring, and that was it. And so our older kids we raised during that time, pre-internet and all of that. And so one of the questions that I thought I'd start with all of you, because you raised children in a different age than I did, do you think you find it harder or easier to raise children now than when your mother was raising you? And if so, how?
A few moments of silence. Well, I want to point out, we have 2 single moms at the table. We have 5, if I'm not mistaken, military spouses.
Right.
We have 2 moms here with special needs kids. So we have a lot of challenges going on, maybe more so than normal.
Yes.
Right.
I think raising children now is much more layered for women than raising children for our mothers.
I would agree with that. Yeah.
And what do you mean by that?
We have a lot on our plates. We have to not only raise children, and especially in this room, alone a lot of the times, whether it be because you're a single mom or because we have military spouses. And then on top of that, we have to add in running our own business, trying to cultivate our own careers, and just establishing ourselves as businesswomen on top of trying to be good mothers and good spouses and good support systems for our friends and our communities. So, it's very layered, I feel, compared to mothers in the past.
Christian wants to say something, I can tell.
Right now, I was just going to say, I think it's harder nowadays, especially with the internet. My son he'll be 13 this Friday, actually. And YouTube is a huge thing nowadays. And he begged me for 2 years now, could he get a YouTube account? And I was always no, because I didn't think he was ready or mature enough for any comments he could get on the internet. So we finally made a deal that I would allow him to do the YouTube if he turned off the comment section, so nobody could comment on his YouTube stuff. So he was happy with that. He took it. He would take whatever I will give him at this time. But when we were growing up, we didn't have YouTube. We didn't have the internet. If we did something stupid, it wasn't blasted, to millions of people to see. So the fear for us, I think, is greater than the fear that my mother had when I was going through school. I don't know.
I agree with that, especially I have 2 girls. And so, girls especially, I think they take things harder. They're more emotional, and so when you have social media like Facebook and things like that where people can post whatever they want and anyone can read it, and they, girls especially, I think, take it really hard. And so it's hard to, with the phones, and everyone wants a phone, these days when they're 9 years old. And I just think that's crazy, I had my first phone when I was 16, and I didn't want it. I fought not to have the phone. I wanted that separation from my parents, and I got my driver's license, and now it's like they want these phones at 9 years old. What are they going to do with a phone, besides get into trouble? Yeah. So.
My
I'm on
6-year-old.
a little different spectrum from that. Sorry, go ahead.
My 6-year-old wants a phone.
Yeah.
I tell him no.
It's about what age to start now? Well, I have 2 girls with a phone, and they're only 8 and 10. But I have to tell a lot of parents the reason they have their phone is it's because we have a split family, and so when they're with their dad, I want to be able to get in touch with them, and the same on our end. But with that, so I do get to message them and talk to them whenever and wherever I am, when they're with their dad. But and he does the same. But on the other end, we have that same problem with they have a phone, and they're looking at things. We have to constantly make sure that watch what they're looking at and just kind of make. I notice a lot of times we'll go out to dinner and one of them will have their phone, and I'm like, ugh. But I have mine too, so it's kind of this battle of when they should have it, when they're not. Yeah. And they're like, well, what, maybe Dad would want to call, and I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, so it's a battle for sure.
I'm sure as they get older too, you're looking at it more like, a safety thing. You can track them with the phones. You can track their GPS where they're at. And on their end, though, it's like, why are you tracking me? So I'm knowing to answer those questions. Why are you tracking? Why do you want to know where I'm at? They want to try to avoid me at that point where when we were kids, we didn't have to worry about that. If we wanted to sneak out of our window, we'd just sneak out of the window. They couldn't track us and find out where we're at. So now you have to be really careful. And I don't know. I'm kind of worried about that teenager stage.
Yeah, I agree. I have an 11-year-old granddaughter, and she's in 6th grade, and she's starting to get some of the mean girl stuff coming through on her phone. And my son and his wife, they have to struggle with that, just like you're talking about. Yeah.
I'm worried about that too when they become teenagers. Once you put something on the internet, once you send that text that you shouldn't send or that picture that you really shouldn't send, it's on the internet forever.
Yeah.
It's going to be shown to the friend and then the friend's friend and then the friend's friend's friend. And all of a sudden, everyone in the school knows that you sent that one picture. We didn't have that growing up, at least not till maybe the very end. Yeah.
Take a bad picture, you just burn it.
Yeah.
Well, so what do you think are some of the most important life lessons that you learned from your mothers?
I would say patience.
Patience.
Patience. I have a 4-year-old, so every day is exercises and learning patience right now. And it's mommy, 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 which I love. But I'm not necessarily a patient person, so definitely patience. My mother is very patient, so I look to her for that a lot.
I used to be patient, then I became a mom.
Yeah.
The thing that blows my mind, I don't know if it's the same with you guys, but so every time like a holiday comes, Easter, Valentine's, Christmas, like there's so much to do. And my mom just did all that, and I just thought it was done, a lot of times by these bunnies and fairies and, Santa and everybody. But that's a lot of work. And when you have 3 girls and you're trying to keep up with all the holidays, every time a holiday comes, I'm like, "Argh!" Like
Stressful.
Because
It's so
it's
stressful.
expensive, and you have to be on it, and and then there's a lot of lies. And that's hard too, and then you don't know where that line is and when I should lie and when I shouldn't. But my mom just did all that, and I just that's all kind of stuff you take for granted, but then when you're doing it times 3, you're like,
Yeah.
rough. And I think that's more of a woman thing too. I think, obviously my family, I'm a single mom, I have to do it, but I think that's more of a role that the mom just takes and she adds it to her plate, and that a lot of times the dad doesn't even take an account for that, and doesn't even know that's really going on and how much work that is.
Isn't there a greater appreciation for your mothers as you
Yes.
become mothers?
I don't understand. My mom it always seemed like it was so fun.
And
And
easy.
she enjoyed it. I don't enjoy it. I'm stressed out. We've got coloring Easter eggs is the most stressful part
just
of
don't
the
do that.
year.
Yeah, just don't
It's
do
like,
that.
you've got this dye and it's like spilling everywhere, and you've got a 4-year-old throwing eggs, and you're just like,
Send them to a friend
oh
for
my
that.
God. You just want it over, so it's so stressful.
It's like that scene from Griswold Family
Oh my God,
Christmas where the
favorite
mother is
movie.
in the kitchen and she's chopping vegetables, and Audrey's complaining that she's got to sleep with her brother, and she slams the knife down and says, "Suck it up, Audrey. It's the holidays. We're all miserable."
It's so true. It's
So true.
Except for St. Patrick's Day, which when I was growing up, it was just another day that came 2 days after my birthday. Not a big deal. You wore green. You get pinched. Now it's become this thing that I didn't even know existed, where you're supposed to make the leprechaun trick your kids
Yes.
with green milk and things all over the house, and
Yes.
you know,
I
when
didn't
all
know
the
that.
neighbors are doing
I
it and
missed
your
that.
family's
Wow.
not doing it. Your kids
Yes.
questioning
They're not as cool.
why isn't the leprechaun visiting our house?
I have no idea what they're talking about.
It's crazy.
I don't know what they're talking
So I
about.
told my husband,
No idea what you're talking
I told my husband, I said, Leprechaun Day is your day. So he is now, it's a big to-do now in our family, is the leprechaun hunt. They go and hunt the leprechaun every year. And this year my husband's deployed, so sorry kids, the leprechaun didn't come this year. I don't know what to do.
Well, it's
So
kind of like
he's
the
in
elf.
Africa.
It's like the
You
elf
know?
for Christmas. Baby elf.
It's just, no.
I
So,
stopped that.
Yeah, baby elf. Now Christmas used to be a couple day event, and now it's a
whole
whole
month.
month. You gotta do. You gotta
And
think
every
about
night,
it.
if you don't remember to move the elf, It's like, why didn't the elf move?
Then you got to think of a lie, as I was talking about earlier, on why the elf didn't
So
move.
many lies.
Because you touched that elf.
But when you go out of town, why is there a different elf at Grammy and Pop-Up's house? Why does it look different?
We don't do the elf.
It's
We
it's
haven't
crazy.
done that.
Don't.
No fun.
No.
Anyone else? Well, we're coming to the end of our first segment, and we've made it through 2 of my 27 questions. So I think we're moving right along very nicely.
We're going to break. Did she give us 2
Yeah.
minutes? So we're going to come
One-
back.
oh,
We're talking.
she has 1 more minute. I'm sorry.
Oh, we do?
Yeah. Mhm.
So, John, this is a pretty shy group.
Yes.
And I don't know what you want to plan to do in the second set, but we'll try to get the troops
Sing or something.
rallied. Yeah. But there's a great, you can see everyone's heart and the positive emotion,
Definitely.
which is what we see every day.
Yeah.
I think they're great moms, by the way. I get to meet their kids. They come in, and they're usually always better behaved when they're out in public than when they're home. Nicole's kids are, they come in, huh?
I said I would disagree with that.
So Nicole's kids come in, they are so polite, they are so well-spoken. Christian's daughter comes in. Stephanie's boys. Now, Stephanie's boys are great. They remind me the most of me when I was a kid. With their spirit,
everywhere,
they're
all
all
over the place.
And my mom used to say to me after I grew up and went through college, she would look back with guilt and say, you know what? I never allowed your spirit to just be. I tried so hard to put my thumb down on you. And I said, I know. But everyone, and the guilt is a big part of being a mom as well, because you never think you're doing enough. We're going to come back in the second set. This is All Things Moore County.
That's great. Welcome back to set number 2. We're here for our special Mother's Day segment, and Bill, you've certainly assembled an amazing array of guests here today.
It's one of the greatest privileges of what I do to work with these ladies every day. It rejuvenates. I look forward every day to going in because I see younger versions of myself, and it's just a privilege to be able to work with them. That's
So
true.
when my youngest was a little boy, he fell down, and I can remember he comes up to my wife and he says, "Mommy, I got an owie." And she said, "Oh, how did you get an owie?" And he said, "I fell down." And she said, "Well, how did you fall down?" And he said, "Very well." So what's the funny, memorable thing you can remember one of your children saying?
I don't
There's
think I
that-
can say mine on the radio. It's really embarrassing.
There's that talk about memory again. We don't remember anything.
Well, I got through that question. 26 to go then.
When I was, can I participate
Sure.
in this?
Yeah.
So when I was a kid, I would come home from school, and I would come home and have tears in my eyes. I was in 4th grade, and my mother would say, "What's wrong?" And I'd say, I pretended I didn't want to cry in front of her, and I would say I had my feelings broken. I couldn't say hurt. I didn't know the word. So we thought, sticks and stones break your bone. So we always said we had our feelings broken.
Yeah.
My parents, for whatever reason, always remembered that. Little things like that.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
my youngest says, she made my feelings sad.
Yeah.
And that really breaks my heart when she says that. But sometimes she needs her feelings made sad.
Magic is real because the tooth fairy is magic, and the tooth fairy is real. So magic is real.
Magic is real.
I can't think of anything she said cute because yesterday she embarrassed the heck out of me. So that's all I can think about.
She
Emery.
embarrassed you?
Yes.
No.
You know how kids say just whatever comes to mind? So we're at the doctor's, and a heavier set woman walked in the door. And in front of the whole entire seating room, not seating room, the waiting room, she looks over and just as innocent and just as plain as day, "Mom, she is really big." I didn't even know what to do. just, I'm gonna kill you, kid.
That's happened to me.
Come here and don't speak, please. So that's what I have in my mind. So right now she doesn't say anything really cute.
I'll tell you what my youngest did to me last year. It was spring. We were eating. We had I think it was Mother's Day last year. We were eating at the club, and so we dressed up because we don't do that often. And there was a buffet line, and it was pretty crowded around the buffet, and my youngest lifts up my dress and proceeds to tell everyone that I don't have underwear on. Well, I did. In my defense, I did. Okay, let's clear that up. I did, but I had to explain to I was like, so put my dress down, and then I had to look up across the buffet table and tell the people that, yeah, I do. I have underwear on. It was so awkward.
That's funny.
That's great. So who has a family rocking chair?
I do not.
Yeah.
They do.
Yeah. Important part of your life and memories, I'll bet.
Yeah, so my mom's best friend, Ann Parker, who owns Aberdeen Exterminating, gave me a rocking chair from her family and passed it to my family. So when I had the girls, I kept it throughout and had it for them. So yeah, so it's kind of special for us.
That's wonderful.
It's not very comfy to like rock the girls in. It's wood, but I used it and I loved it.
I don't have one. No.
I had one when I was a little kid, but I don't remember any special memories about it.
Yeah. Our moms failed on that part.
I see. Okay.
Honestly.
Wrong generation, John.
Wrong generation. All
I
right.
got you, John. I got you.
Well, technically, it wasn't your mommy.
I am from the true South.
Well, this is a question that Bill wanted me to ask you. The term helicopter parent wasn't around when my wife and I were raising children, but how would you describe a helicopter parent?
Well, the question is, Bill, do you think we're helicopter parents?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, I actually do not.
No?
No, I don't think so at all. I see, we talk a lot in our office about kids that are entitled, that they just have an expectation that everything is there for them. And sometimes that's a result of a helicopter parent who's hovering. I don't see that at all. But I don't know if you all see it with some of your friends' parents and how it affects the relationships your kids have with them.
Does that mean you want us to control our kids more?
No. Actually, the thing is, I'm so lenient with the kids. And the reason that I am is because I always remember what my mom said. Always admire the child's spirit. If a child misbehaves or is not being perfect, it's not a reflection on the mother. Kids are just being kids. And I'm all for that. And sometimes Stephanie will come in and I can see she's uptight because Carson and Nicholas, if they see a wall, they'll try to climb it. But that's their spirit.
And they can get up that wall.
Yeah.
But it's different too when you have multiple kids, because I mean, you hear it all the time. You have your first child and you do everything right by the book. Your second child comes along, you're like, oh, I can eat this. This will be fine when we're pregnant. No big deal. They'll live. And then it's the same thing with raising them. It's like, oh, they'll be fine. And then third kid comes along, you're like, oh, yeah, anything goes at this point.
Well, give me an example of like a helicopter mom. What's the difference between a helicopter parent and a caring parent?
So a helicopter
need
parent,
that
I'll tell you right now,
definition.
because I have a friend that is a helicopter parent. She has 2 girls, and they are 9 and 12, I believe.
I mean, you might as well just say her name.
No.
I think I know.
Jeez.
But I'm just saying, I invited them to come with us somewhere, and she had never let her kids ride in anybody else's car but hers.
Okay.
Ever. She was reluctant to let them come with me. Because she had never let them ride in someone else's car before.
Okay, that's an
At
example.
9 and 12.
Good example.
So, okay, I would say I'm not a helicopter parent with my oldest and youngest, but I'm definitely a helicopter parent when it comes to Gianni. Just because nobody else really can handle him besides me. So I have to be on him. And some people are like, you need to relax, let him be. but they don't understand.
It's a whole different dynamic when you have a special needs child.
So
you
Nicholl-
almost have to be.
Yeah, so Nicholl and Christian both have one child each, special needs. You want to talk about it a little bit? Because it does put a little more of a requirement on what you do and how you oversee.
Yeah, well, my son is autistic and developmentally delayed. So he has sensory issues, but he also has a lower IQ because of his developmental delay, which two different things, and each have their own issues. So put them together, can be very difficult. And so for me, like my girlfriends had a big party for Cinco de Mayo on Saturday. All the families came with the kids, and my friend was like, yeah, we're going to have water balloons. And as soon as I heard that, I thought, my God, if somebody throws a water balloon at Gianni, he's going to flip out, cause a scene. He could run, he could scream, he could hit. So I immediately just don't go. So it really alters our life completely. Where most people, I don't think, truly understand the stress, the pressure, and the dynamic that my family has that nobody else has. It's hard to explain, but I don't know, my husband and I live a different life than a family with what's a political correct, neurological...
Typical developing
children. Yeah.
Yes. My son Channing, he is also autistic. He's nonverbal, and as of today, he has been 1 year seizure-free. Yes. Having a special needs child it can be very difficult and challenging and often heartbreaking. However, it fosters a level of respect and appreciation and selflessness in yourself and for other people that you could never even fathom exist until you have a special needs child yourself and you're involved in a special needs family. And I think that's beautiful, and it also has translated well into my career, because I can take all of those things and I can put that forward into when I work with clients and I work with other people. And where you were once ruled by ego and self, you are now driven by service and compassion to others. And I feel like that has been really beneficial for me in my career.
Wow. Wow.
There was one of the quotes that I had pulled up, and I'm losing my voice. When you are a mother, you're never really alone in your thoughts. A mother always has to think twice, once for herself and once for her child. It's no longer just about, I think you're saying something like that. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A moment of silence at the table. But every day you get up, and every day it's not about you, right? It's just everyone you have to worry about. Bree, you have a son. He's 4 years old. You haven't gotten to a point yet where you have a lot of the same issues.
Well, a lot of the issues that I have now are a little different just because he is younger, and there are certain things that we have not gotten to yet. But what you're saying is true, and I think it's very fresh in my mind just because, before I had my child, I think I was more of just a selfish person, and now it's like every decision that I make, it is about, okay, well, how does this affect not me, but Max? Like, how is this going to impact his day, or, that. So definitely less selfish.
Do you guys remember before kids? You probably don't. I don't think you remember. But before kids, I remember thinking like, oh, I'm so busy. Oh, I've had a busy day. And now I look back, I'm like, what was I doing all day? Like, why was I so busy that day?
We're going to close this.
Hours later, you just crash.
We have to close this second set. The quote I'm going to steal from you. It's not easy being a mother. If it were easy, fathers would do it. We'll be back.
It's like shooting fish in a barrel, Bill. It's like shooting fish in a barrel.
Yeah. This is All Things Moore County. We'll be right back.
I think it's a big
Like, you're
thing.
going to have to start picking kids up from after school activities, things like that. He's like, but you're by yourself now and you're doing it all. But this is where you made half of these kids. Like, you can participate, So I can't ever depend. And I've learned that, because with his job, he has to be there from a set time. So I don't ever want to depend on him, but when he's available, he needs to be there.
Yeah.
No questions asked. So I've already started that conversation.
We should do a new show on what husbands should do.
Well,
I could talk for hours.
we actually have already started the third set, so we might as well just continue.
Are we in the third set?
Yeah. So I have to ask a question, and I'm going to do this because I know we're back on the air.
Okay.
It was just too good not to take.
I mean, really?
One of the things, that I admire the most about all of you is you fight against a lot of odds. The challenge of trying to have a career that is separate from your children, mothering, and making a life of your own where you're standing on your own takes so much more juggling and time management than I've ever had to do. Because for me, I've put blinders on all my life and I've just done one thing. I don't have a plant or a pet. I go home at night and I'm wondering which FM station I'm going to super tune into. And that is a privilege, and I don't even know that it's a privilege. And I think, Jen, you once said, you should come over for dinner one night with my kids if you think you could survive it. And I said, sure, what time? And you said 5:30. I go, 5:30? Are you serious, 5:30?
Oh, they ate at 5 last night.
Yeah.
Bill is finishing lunch by then.
But I have I'm learning a little bit, get an appreciation about how much you guys juggle, but I couldn't possibly do what you do because I'd have to do 5 other things in addition to what I do. Is there a bit of resentment? Is there a bit of angst about the fact that you're being pushed and you're it's like running a race with ankle weights on, in a way? No?
I don't.
No,
No?
I feel like it gives you more drive for me than it does resentment. You have to do these things. There's no other option. You have to get it done, and you want to set a good example for your kids.
So long as, for me, it's always, though, the kids are always going to come first. Even though there's weekends where I feel like, I literally am juggling my kids from person to person to person, watching them. And then I look back at the night, I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel a little guilty. But at the end of the day, they're happy. They're with their friends. I'm doing what I need to do. And if you're going to work in this kind of profession, learn from someone like Bill, who is all about, do what you need to do for your client. So I do what I need to do for my kids, and then the client comes next. If my house is a disaster, no one's looking at my house but me, especially while my husband's gone. So, so I mean, it's like kids first and then my clients at this point. And I think it's, in this profession, it's kind of what you have to do if you're a mom,
What would you say gives you the most joy as a mother?
I think that for me, just seeing things through my son's eyes, like the things that he gets excited about. Yesterday he found a pine cone, and he held this pine cone for 30 minutes and was so excited about this pine cone. And I don't know what made it special, but it was like the best pine cone ever. And just the fact that he could find so much enjoyment in that, to me, it's amazing.
That's great.
Oh, that's really sweet.
Mine have just done really well this year at school, and I'm like overjoyed at our school and our teachers, and it's Teacher Appreciation Week.
Whoopsies.
Can't keep up.
But just some of the little awards they've gotten and the compliments they get from their teacher, like that. I don't know. That's just huge to me.
Well, because you always feel like you're doing something wrong.
Right.
Right. There's never a book. There's not a book about what to do. So you're always like, God, am I doing this right?
But when you
Why
get
are they a
when you get their
brat?
teacher to kind
Right.
of validate you, you're thinking, I got this.
Yeah,
We're doing it.
absolutely.
We're a
When
team.
you're like,
We're doing it together.
Are they writing this about the right kid? that's my thing. It's like, was this report for my
I know.
kid? Or
There's
was
so
this
often
for...
that I'm like, I bet she says that to every parent.
What would you hope your children would say about you looking back 20 years from now?
Oh gosh.
That I was nice. 'Cause I often feel like I'm always
Yes.
getting on them or correcting them or, just clean up your room, do this, don't be lazy, don't be a brat, you know, like all that. And then you at night sometimes you sit and you go, gosh, was I really that hard, or was I too hard on them, or you know, so when they grow up, like, man, my mom was a raging lunatic, or my mom was a great mom. I don't know. I guess we'll find out.
Who else? Joy in being a mother.
I just hope that they know that I was always there for them,
Yeah.
even though my husband was gone half the time, or I started working, and they felt like I was
the one there for you.
Yeah, well, not that, but it's like, it is one of those things that, you know, my husband and I talked a lot about. You know, I was a stay-at-home mom, and I started working, and he's always reminding me, are you making sure the kids you're spending time with the kids, and you're doing what you need? I said, look, I'm there for them every day after school. I'm at every soccer game. I'm at every piano lesson. You know, I'm doing what I need to do for them. So as long as they know that I'm still doing everything for them that needs to be done and working at the same time, I think, you know, they'll respect that later down the road.
And Bill has talked about that with me before, about now how my girls will view me as being, you know, a career woman, and you know, they may not see right now that it's the best thing for our family, but eventually they will. And we've talked about that a lot, and it's really stuck. And at the time, I think he brought it up probably 5 years ago, and at the time it was just kind of like, you know, I mean, I had toddlers running around everywhere, and I felt like, what is it? I don't even understand what he's talking about. Like, I'm just trying to make it to tomorrow. And then, but now as they're getting older, and you know, I'm coming into real estate more, I feel like it's starting to make sense.
John, I've watched all of them, and they're all excellent role models for their kids. The fondest memories I have of my mom were the tough love lessons. It didn't occur that way at the time, and I hated her for it. But in looking back, those are the things I remember. Moms just don't get a lot of immediate gratification, especially with kids. It's all delayed. But oh my gosh, they will come back and they circle around and they see you, and they'll appreciate you with a whole different set of eyes. They're all good moms. I watch them. Christian, you're not, you're a disciplinarian, but you're consistent. And consistency is so important. And your kids' manners, your children's manners, reflect that. Danny, I think I spoke as well as him when I got out of college. He's 13 years old. No, they are so well mannered, and they might fight, but the kids listen. You just don't get that immediate pat on the back. Oh, Mom, you're so sweet.
No, yeah, you're right. You know, growing up, he struggled in school, and I really had to work with him, and he drove me bonkers because he didn't want to do it, and I would make him, and we would get into these battles, and you know, and then he just got awarded with Duke for scoring over 23 on a section of the ACT, and it's like that one moment where you're like, oh my gosh, that fighting was so worth it when he was in first and second and third grade. But yeah, it's a struggle now.
I can brag on all of these kids. Nicole's son, Gary. My God, he's how old is he?
He's 11 now.
He comes in, he sits at my desk. His vocabulary, he could take the SATs today and get a 750. He has expressions that I only hear from adults. We talk about sports, we talk about athletics, we talk his favorite players, but it's not just, he gives reasons, he supports himself. He is so well met, and he speaks just beautifully.
But maybe it's because we have so much crazy in our life. I thought about this because Channing and Gianni are so difficult sometimes that we have to keep it down in the house, which means that I feel like I can only deal with so much crazy in one day. And unfortunately, Gianni takes up almost all of my patience in one day. It takes a lot of patience. I feel guilty, but I have very little for the oldest or the youngest. So I feel like everything has to just be calm, and you guys have to just listen, and that's where I've always been. So I feel like they just kind of like learn that, and they just know like to do it. I don't know. It's weird. But
I'm in the same situation because my youngest is she's a handful. She's just crazy, and she makes our world crazy. And but my other two, I've never had to discipline them.
Right.
I've never had to they just do what they do what they're supposed
maybe
to do.
they instinctively know that we
Yeah.
can only take so much.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so they just fall in line in what they're supposed to do.
But I do try to make sure that they have their time too. I mean, on a daily basis, we turn our music up as loud as we can, and we have dance parties, and we get crazy,
Right.
and we laugh, and we have, because I don't want them to feel like they're my assistants, with
Right.
the youngest.
Right.
I want them to know they're kids too, and to,
And they're
have fun.
appreciated for everything
Yeah,
that they do to help
absolutely.
us.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, Bill, I certainly agree with you, and these are passionate, caring, loving
Yeah.
moms.
Right.
Tremendous courage and character and all of that, and
Right.
you've been doing it for a while. As you look at young women younger than you, maybe women graduating from high school and into college and so forth, is there any advice that you pass on to them as they anticipate beginning their own families?
Too much.
Enjoy the life they have right now.
Yeah.
I think we always are trying to look in the future so much we forget to appreciate the time we have and the life we have at that moment. I was a young mom, so never really got that moment, but that's why I would tell them to really appreciate that moment.
Appreciate.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you wake up one day and all of a sudden you're a mom
Mm-hmm.
and you have responsibilities beyond anything you've ever had before,
Mm-hmm.
and you go, where did this all happen? Where did this transition come in?
I mean, I was a very young mom, so I never
as
really,
well.
you as well. So I never had that experience.
And sometimes I think, how did I end up with 3 kids? Oh my God! Like, how did this happen?
No, exactly.
It's like, am I old enough for 3 kids? And then I'm like, oh gosh, I'm 40. Yeah.
Yeah.
John, a lot more is asked of women in our society. When men, we're born, we grow up, we have a bunch of rules we're taught. Those rules don't change as we get older. We go into a career, we get married, we have kids. Our roles haven't changed. It's the women who have to adjust and accommodate and change way more than men.
I feel like the men are still playing video games, like they did when they were 10.
Yeah, what's wrong with that?
And
No,
their
just kidding.
50s.
Yeah.
Sports.
No, you're right.
That's true.
Men get a free ride in a way,
Yeah.
don't they?
Yeah. So one of the things that I think I hear you saying is that enjoy being young, enjoy being single, enjoy exploring who you are as a person. I think that's there seems to be a trend. I know in the 70s when I graduated from college, people were getting married in their very early 20s, and the trend seems to be generally a little bit later now. And I tend to think that that's probably a pretty good idea. You get to know who you are in the world, and you get to learn, how to balance a checkbook and pay your bills and do all of those kind of things. And so once you've established that, understand the working world, then, having a family seems to be.
The only downside to that is when you come out of college, you're set for this career and you start doing, working, and then all of a sudden it's time for kids, and and it's so common. A lot of my friends, and so we quit our careers, we give up everything we had. I owned a business, and I gave up my business, and to just continue with my family and everything. And then you do that, but then you got to start over again, and you got to start up your career again. So it's almost like this: do you have kids young and then start your career later, and just start and go, or do you start something, stop it, start it? So it's
See, and my parents, my mom was 20, my dad was 23 when they first got married. I think 78, 79. And my dad was in his career, but my mom had to go to school pregnant with my father, helping her. And she did start her career as she was having children, but really started once she was done with me. And I really thought, it brings you together and it brings you stronger, because I also believe when people are older, when they get married, they're set in their ways. And it's harder to bring two people together who are set in their ways. Where when you're younger, you kind of mold together.
Evolve together.
You evolve together.
Or sometimes
Apart. But yeah, I can see where you said that. I could, yeah.
I think that single moms, whether they be by divorce or separation or having husbands who are deployed, I have enormous respect, because from the moment you wake up in the morning, someone else needs you. From the time you wake up in the morning until the time you go to bed at night. Yeah, and having that opportunity, people say you got to take care of yourself and so forth, but it's really hard. Easier said than done, isn't it?
I don't view myself as a single mother when my husband's deployed.
No, I don't either.
I think because I truly was a single mother with no help, no person in the life at all.
No emotional support,
no financial support, nothing. So when my husband's deployed, I actually don't feel as a single mother. Because he's still there.
I know there's a lot that do.
There's a lot.
And they'll go and say, I'm a single mom right now. And I don't agree with that. It's definitely hard when they're gone. You have to do everything yourself, but you still, this day and age, you still can communicate with them pretty regularly, so you can still have that communication.
Right.
With me working, it was more, I needed to be able to speak to other adults, other humans, other than 3-year-olds and 5-year-olds, so it was just a good way. It's so funny because my husband will come home from work and he's just tired. He's been talking with people all day. He just wants to relax and have quiet. And I'm like, I've been talking with 3-year-olds all day. I just want some adult interaction here. Like, we communicate. I want to talk. I don't care what we talk to you about, nothing, as long as we're talking.
Yeah.
So
That's true.
On that note, I'd say to younger mothers to be present in the moment. You do not have to do it all, and to also set the expectation early on that you are not going to be the one that does it all. And I think that would really be helpful
Or be
moving
perfect
forward.
at it.
Yes, or to be perfect at it. Yeah, no such thing.
That's good for any mom.
Any mom, yeah.
True.
Because you have those moms that really show everybody that they're perfect at it and they're good at everything. You kind of feel like, man.
those are only in photographs.
I'm not that mom.
You're seeing their highlight reel.
Well, like the ones who like bake everything for the teachers and like know everything. You're like, oh God, I don't
Running the
know.
PTA.
Do the leprechaun thing for the mom.
Sorry, kids.
My wife posted we have a running chain with our adult children going back and forth. My wife posted yesterday, she said, I don't rise and shine. I caffeinate and hope for the best.
Yeah, pretty much.
Hey, John, before we wrap up, you wanted to talk to them about something that you and Julie had mentioned to me this morning?
Oh, sure. I was going to do it off the air, but I can do it now.
Oh, yeah.
My wife and I both are yoga teachers, and we'd like to invite you to come over to our house some evening that it works for you, and we'll
what are you doing
co-teach a
tonight?
yoga class. And maybe have a little wine and cheese party afterward, and
Wonderful.
get to know you. So we'll have you negotiate dates.
I got soccer. I got stuff.
Exactly. Well, this has just been a great pleasure to get to know all of you, and I'm just so sorry there was so little to talk about.
There's a saying, there's no way to be a perfect mom and a million ways to be a good one.
Yeah.
And what I see from everyone at this table is you're all great moms. You'll have great kids. Patience is a virtue, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
You just keep fighting the good fight day to day, and it'll come back and pay dividends.
But Bill, we respect that you give us the opportunity to, because some people don't, and some people don't understand. And we know that you're not in that situation to have the kids and to do it, but you respect us for doing it, and we appreciate that.
Oh yeah. Oh, I
We just
do.
don't appreciate the candy bowl.
Right?
That's gotta go.
I think Bill should pay for the dentist bill.
That's the next thing. John Tampa, thanks for coming in
Thank
and
you.
making this meaningful conversation. Really
It's great.
appreciate it.
What a pleasure, and thanks for the privilege of being with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Happy Mother's Day to everybody. This is All Things Moore County. We'll see you next week. Thank you.